today. About to continue reading War and Peace. I'm not playing the game just yet. Let's see. Okay, it's updated. Hopefully that'll work. I just flagged all the things because I don't want any kids showing up on my stream. So I flagged all of the content labels. Even if, so from this point forward, I'm going to flag all the content labels because I don't really want children on this channel, because sometimes I say things that are meant for adults. I don't really like children, to be honest. I have a son and I like him, and if I'm forced to be around like a friend's kid or something, they're alright, but overall, kids do unexpected things and I just don't like to be around them. But I do like to do whatever I can to make sure that they're okay. Like avoiding my channel, which is meant for millennials predominantly. Anyway, chapter 11. A silence ensued. The Countess looked at her callers, smiling affably, but not concealing the fact that she would not be distressed if they now rose and took their leave. The visitor's daughter was already smoothing down her dress with an inquiring look at her mother, when suddenly from the next room were heard the footsteps of boys and girls running to the door, and the noise of a chair falling over, and the girl of 13, hiding something in the folds of her short muslin frock, darted in and stopped short in the middle of the room. It was evident that she had not intended her flight to bring her so far. Behind her in the doorway appeared a student with a crimson coat collar, an officer of the guards, a girl of 15, and a plump, rosy-faced boy in a short jacket. The Count jumped up and, swaying from side to side, spread his arms wide and threw them around the little girl who had run in. So I'm going to say now, I think that it's very likely that the writing of Robert Jordan was inspired by Leo Tolstoy. I can just tell by the traces of language that are passing across the page. I'm pretty sure that he was inspired by this writing. And where am I? The Count jumped up and, swaying from side to side, spread his arms wide and threw them around the little girl who had run in. "Ah, here she is," he exclaimed, laughing. "My pet, whose name day it is. My dear pet. Ma chère. There is a time for everything," said the Countess with feigned severity. "You spoil her, Ilya," she added, turning to her husband. "How do you do, my dear? I wish you many happy returns of your name day," said the visitor. "What a charming child," she added, addressing the mother. This black-eyed, wide-mouthed girl, not pretty but full of life, with childish, bare shoulders, which after her run heaved and shook her bodice, with black curls tossed backwards, thin bare arms, little legs in lace-frilled drawers, and feet in low slippers. Was just at that charming age when a girl is no longer a child, though the child is not yet a young woman. Escaping from her father, she ran to hide her flushed face in the lace of her mother's mantilla, not paying the least attention to her severe remark, and began to laugh. She laughed, and in fragmentary sentences tried to explain about a doll which she produced from the folds of her frock. "Do you see, my doll, Mimi, you see," was all Natasha managed to utter. To her, everything seemed funny. She leaned against her mother and burst into such a loud, ringing fit of laughter that even the prim visitor could not help joining in. "Now then, go away and take your monstrosity with you," said the mother, pushing away her daughter with pretended sternness. And turning to the visitor, she added, "She is my youngest girl." Natasha, raising her face for a moment from her mother's mantilla, glanced up at her through tears of laughter and again hid her face. The visitor, compelled to look on at this family scene, thought it necessary to take some part in it. "Tell me, my dear," she said to Natasha, "is Mimi a relation of yours? A daughter, I suppose?" Natasha did not like the visitor's tone of condescension to childish things. She did not reply, but looked at her seriously. Meanwhile, a younger generation, Boris the officer, Anya Mikhailovna's son, Nicholas, the undergraduate, the Count's eldest son, Sonia, the Count's 15-year-old niece, and little Petya, his youngest boy, had all settled down in the drawing room and were obviously trying to restrain within the bounds of decorum the excitement and mirth that shone in all their faces. Evidently in the back rooms from which they had dashed out so impetuously, the conversation had been more amusing than the drawing room talk of society scandals, the weather, and Countess Apraxina. I don't know how to say that. Apraxina. I'm not going to just keep saying I don't know how to say stuff. If I say something wrong, oh well. Now where was I? Now and then they glanced at one another, hardly able to suppress their laughter. The two young men, the student and the officer, friends from childhood, were of the same age and both handsome fellows, though not alike. Boris was tall and fair, and his calm and handsome face had regular, delicate features. Boris is a good name. I really enjoyed Goldeneye. Nicholas was short with curly hair and an open expression. Dark hairs were already showing on his upper lip, and his whole face expressed impetuosity and enthusiasm. Nicholas blushed when he entered the drawing room. He evidently tried to find something to say but failed. Boris, on the contrary, at once found his footing, and related quietly and humorously how he had known that doll aged during the 5 years, how he had known that doll Mimi when she was still quite a young lady, before her nose was broken, how she had aged during the 5 years he had known her, and how her head had cracked right across the skull. Having said this, he glanced at Natasha. She turned away from him and glanced at her younger brother, who was screwing up his eyes and shaking with suppressed laughter, and unable to control herself any longer. She jumped up and rushed from the room as fast as her nimble little feet would carry her. Boris did not laugh. "You were meaning to go out, weren't you, Mama? Do you want the carriage?" he asked his mother with a smile. Yes, go and tell them to get it ready," she answered, returning his smile. Boris quietly left the room and went in search of Natasha. The plump boy ran after them angrily, as if vexed that their program had been disturbed. The only young people remaining in the drawing room, not counting the young lady visitor and the Countess's eldest daughter. This is chapter 12. Sorry, I'll start over chapter 12. The only young people remaining in the drawing room, not counting the young lady visitor and the Countess's eldest daughter, who was 4 years older than her sister and behaved already like a grown-up person, were Nicholas and Sonia, the niece. Sonia, Street Fighter was a good game too, was a slender little brunette and a tender look in her eyes, which were veiled by not Street Fighter, sorry, Sonia is Mortal Kombat. Sonia was a slender little brunette with a tender look in her eyes that were veiled by long lashes, thick black plaits coiling twice around her head, and a tawny tint in her complexion, and especially in the color of her slender but graceful and muscular arms and neck. By the grace of her movements, by the softness and flexibility of her small limbs, and by a certain coyness and reserve of manner, she reminded one of a pretty half-grown kitten, which promises to become a beautiful little cat. She evidently considered it proper to show an interest in the general conversation by smiling. But in spite of herself, her eyes under their thick long lashes watched her cousin, who was going to join the army, with such passionate girlish adoration that her smile could not for a single instant impose upon anyone. And it was clear that the kitten had settled down only to spring up with more energy and again play with her cousin as soon as they could, like Natasha and Boris, escaped from the drawing room. "Ah, yes, my dear," said the Count, addressing the visitor and pointing to Nicholas. "His friend Boris has become an officer, and so for friendship's sake he is leaving the university and me, his old father, and entering the military service, my dear. And there was a place and everything waiting for him in the archives department. Isn't that friendship?" remarked the Count in an inquiring tone. "But they say that war has been declared," replied the visitor. "They've been saying so for a long while," said the Count. "And they'll say so again and again, and that will be the end of it. My dear, there's friendship for you," he repeated. "He's joining the Hussars." The visitor, not knowing what to say, shook her head. It's not at all from friendship, declared Nicholas, flaring up and turning away as if from a shameful aspersion. It is not from friendship at all. I simply feel that the army is my vocation. He glanced at his cousin and the young lady visitor, and they were both regarding him with a smile of approbation. Schubert, the colonel of the Pavlograd Hussars, is dining with us today. He has been here on leave and is taking Nicholas back with him. It can't be helped, said the Count, shrugging his shoulders and speaking playfully on a matter that evidently distressed him. I've already told you, Papa, said his son, that if you don't wish to let me go, I'll stay. But I know I am no use anywhere except in the army. I am not a diplomat nor a government clerk. I don't know how to hide what I feel. As he spoke, he kept glancing with the flirtatiousness of a handsome youth at Sonia and the young lady visitor. The little kitten, feasting her eyes on him. The little kitten, feasting her eyes on him, seemed ready at any moment to start her gambols again and display her kittenish nature. All right, said the old Count. He always flares up. This Bonaparte has turned all their heads. They all think of how he rose from an ensign and became emperor. Well, God grant it, he added, not noticing his visitor's sarcastic smile. The elders began talking about Bonaparte. Julie Karagina turned to young Rostov. What a pity you weren't at the Arkarovs on Thursday. I was so dull without you, she said. I was so dull without you, said she, giving him a tender smile. The young man, flattered, sat down nearer to her with a coquettish smile and engaged the smiling Julie in a confidential conversation without at all noticing that his involuntary smile had stabbed the heart of Sonia, who blushed and smiled unnaturally. In the midst of his talk, he glanced around at her. She gave him a passionately angry glance, and hardly able to restrain her tears and maintain the artificial smile on her lips, she got up and left the room. All Nicholas's animation vanished. He waited for the first pause in the conversation, and then with a distressed face left the room to find Sonia. How plainly all these young people wear their hearts on their sleeves, said Anna Mikhailovna, pointing to Nicholas as he went out. Cousinage, dangereux voisinage, she added. Cousinhood is a dangerous neighborhood, is what that means. Yes, said the Countess, with the brightness that these young people had brought into the room had vanished. Yes, said the Countess, when the brightness these young people had brought into the room had vanished. And as if answering a question no one had put, but which was, and as if answering a question no one had put, but which was already in her mind, and how much suffering, how much anxiety one has had to go through that we might rejoice in them now. And yet, really the anxiety is greater now than the joy. One is always anxious, especially just at this age, so dangerous both for girls and boys. It all depends on the bringing up, remarked the visitor. Yes, you're quite right, continued the Countess. Till now I have always, thank God, been my children's friend and had their full confidence, said she, repeating the mistake of so many parents who imagine that their children have no secrets from them. I know I shall always be my daughter's first confidant, and that if Nicholas, with his impulsive nature, does get into a mischief, a boy can't help it, he will all the same never be like those Petersburg young men. Yes, they are splendid youngsters, chimed in the Count, who always solved questions that seemed to him perplexing by deciding that everything was splendid. Just fancy, wants to be a hussar. What's one to do, my dear? I don't know what a hussar is. Let me look it up. A member of a European light cavalry unit known for its distinctive and often flamboyant arms. Yeah, I've never been too interested in cavalry units. When I studied ancient history, I was always most interested in knights. I didn't but straight cavalry units, I don't know. I never really got into them. a charming creature that your younger girl is, said the visitor. A little volcano. Yes, a regular volcano, said the Count. Takes after me. And what a voice she has, though she's my daughter. I tell the truth when I say she'll be a singer, a second Salamone. We have engaged an Italian to give her lessons. Isn't she too young? I have heard that it harms the voice to train it at that age. Oh no, not at all too young, replied the Count. Why, our mothers used to be married at 12 or 13. And she's in love with Boris already. Just fancy, said the Countess with a gentle smile, looking at Boris's mother, and went on, evidently concerned with a thought that always occupied her. Now, you see, if I were to be severe with her, and to forbid it, goodness knows what they might be up to on the sly. She meant that they would be kissing. But as it is, I know every word she utters. She will come running to me of her own accord in the evening and tell me everything. Perhaps I spoil her, but really that seems the best plan. With her elder sisters, I was stricter. Yes, I was brought up quite differently, remarked the handsome elder daughter, Countess Vera, with a smile. But the smile did not enhance Vera's beauty as smiles generally do. On the contrary, it gave her an unnatural and therefore unpleasant expression. Vera was good-looking, not at all stupid, quick at learning, was well brought up, and had a pleasant voice. What she said was true and appropriate, yet, strange to say, every one, the visitors and Countess alike, turned to look at her, as if wondering why she had said it, and they all felt awkward. People are always too clever with their eldest children, and try to make something exceptional of them, said the visitor. What's the good of denying it, my dear? Our dear Countess was too clever with Vera, said the Count. Well, what of that? She's turned out splendidly all the same, he added, winking at Vera. The guests got up and took their leave, promising to return to dinner. What manners, I thought they would never go, said the Countess, when she had seen her guests out. Chapter 13. When Natasha ran out of the drawing room, she only went as far as the conservatory. There she paused and stood listening to the conversation in the drawing room, waiting for Boris to come out. She was already growing impatient and stamped her foot, ready to cry at his not coming at once. When she heard the young man's discreet steps approaching neither quickly nor slowly, at this Natasha dashed swiftly among the flower tubs and hid there. Boris paused in the middle of the room, looked around, brushed a little dust from the sleeve of his uniform, and going up to a mirror, examined his handsome face. Natasha, very still, peered out of her ambush, waiting to see what he would do. He stood a little while before the glass, smiled, and walked toward the other door. Natasha was about to call him, but changed her mind. Let him look for me, thought she. Hardly had Boris gone, than Sonia, flushed in tears and muttering angrily, came in at the other door. Natasha checked her first impulse to run out to her, and remained in her hiding place, watching as under an invisible cap, to see what went on in the world. She was experiencing a new and peculiar pleasure. Sonia, muttering to herself, kept looking round towards the drawing room door. It opened and Nicholas came in. Sonia, what is the matter with you? How can you, said he, running up to her. It's nothing, nothing. Leave me alone, sobbed Sonia. I know what it is. Well, if you do, so much the better, and you can go back to her. Sonia, look here. How can you torture me and yourself like that for a mere fancy, said Nicholas, taking her hand. Sonia did not pull it away and left off crying. Natasha, not stirring and scarcely breathing, watched from her ambush, and with sparkling eyes. What will happen now, thought she. I know a Natasha that ambushes. She's a counselor, a very hard person to work with. But she's smart, so it's useful. Sonia, what is anyone in the world to me? You alone are everything, said Nicholas, and I'll prove it to you. I don't like you to talk like that. Well, then I won't. Only forgive me, Sonia. He drew her to him and kissed her. Oh, how nice, thought Natasha, and when Sonia and Nicholas had gone out of the conservatory, she followed and called Boris to her. Boris, come here, said she with a sly and significant look. I have something to tell you. Here, here. And she led him into the conservatory to the place among the tubs where she had been hiding. Boris followed her, smiling. What is something? Asked he. She grew confused, glanced around, and seeing the doll she had thrown down on one of the tubs, picked it up. Kiss the doll, said she. Boris looked attentively and kindly at her eager face, but did not reply. Don't you want to? Well then, come here, said she, and went further in among the plants and threw down the doll. Closer, closer, she whispered. She caught the young officer by his cuffs, and a look of solemnity and fear appeared on her flushed face. And me? Would you like to kiss me? She whispered, almost inaudibly, glancing up at him from under her brows, smiling and almost crying from excitement. Boris blushed. How funny you are, he said, bending down to her and blushing still more, but he waited and did nothing. Suddenly she jumped up on a tub to be higher than he, embraced him that both her slender, bare arms clasped him around his neck, and tossing back her hair, kissed him full on the lips. Then she slipped down among the flower pots on the other side of the tubs and stood hanging her head. Natasha, he said, you know that I love you, but... You are in love with me? Natasha broke in. Yes, I am, but please don't let us do like that. In another 4 years, then I will ask for your hand. Natasha considered. 13, 14, 15, 16. She counted on her slender little fingers. All right, then it's settled? A smile of joy and satisfaction lit up her eager face. Settled, replied Boris. Forever, said the little girl, till death itself. She took his arm and with a happy face went with him into the adjoining sitting room. 14. After receiving her visitors, the Countess was so tired that she gave orders to admit no more, but the porter was told to be sure to invite to dinner all who came to congratulate. The footnote is, it is a Russian custom formally to congratulate people not only on births, engagements, marriages, and other auspicious occasions, but also on holidays, saints' days, or name days, birthdays, and so on. The Countess wished to have a tete-a-tete talk with the friend of her childhood. Tete-a-tete means head to head. I don't know. Tete means head. The Countess wished to have a tete-a-tete talk with the friend of her childhood, Princess Anna Mikhailovna, whom she had not seen properly since she returned from Petersburg. Anna Mikhailovna, with her tear-worn but pleasant face, drew her chair nearer to that of the Countess. With you I will be quite frank, said Anna Mikhailovna. There are not many left of us old friends. That's why I so value your friendship. Anna Mikhailovna looked at Vera and paused. The Countess pressed her friend's hand. Vera, she said to her eldest daughter, who was evidently not a favorite, how is it you have so little tact? Don't you see you are not wanted here? Go to the other girls, or... The handsome Vera smiled contemptuously, but did not seem at all hurt. If you had told me sooner, Mama, I should have gone, she replied as she rose to go to her own room. But as she passed the sitting room, she noticed two couples sitting, one pair at each window. She stopped and smiled scornfully. Sonia was sitting close to Nicholas, who was copying out some verses for her, the first he had ever written. Boris and Natasha were at the other window and ceased talking when Vera entered. Sonia and Natasha looked at Vera with guilty, happy faces. It was pleasant and touching to see these little girls in love, but apparently the sight of them roused no pleasant feeling in Vera. How often have I asked you not to take my things, she said. You have a room of your own, and she took the inkstand from Nicholas. In a minute, he said, dipping his pen. You always manage to do things at the wrong time, continued Vera. You came rushing into the drawing room so that everyone felt ashamed of you. Though what she said was quite just. Perhaps for that very reason no one replied, and the four simply looked at one another. She lingered in the room with the inkstand in her hand. And at your age, what secrets can there be between Natasha and Boris, or between you two? It's all nonsense. Now, Vera, what does it matter to you? Said Natasha in defense, speaking very gently. She seemed that day to be more than ever kind and affectionate to everyone. Very silly, said Vera. I'm ashamed of you. Secrets indeed. All have secrets of their own, answered Natasha, getting warmer. We don't interfere with you and Berg. I should think not, said Vera, because there can never be anything wrong in my behavior. But I'll tell Mama how you are behaving with Boris. Natalia Ilyanichna behaves very well to me, remarked Boris. I have nothing to complain of. Don't, Boris. You are such a diplomat that it is really tiresome, said Natasha in a mortified voice that trembled slightly. She used the word diplomat, which was just then much in vogue among children. I don't know what that means. In the special sense they attach to it. Why does she bother me? And she added, turning to Vera, you'll never understand it because you've never loved anyone. You have no heart. You are a Madame de Genlis and nothing more. This nickname bestowed on Vera by Nicholas was considered very stinging, and your greatest pleasure is to be unpleasant to people. Go and flirt with Berg as much as you please. She finished quickly. I don't know what Vogue means. I'm not looking for the fashion magazine. The prevailing fashion or style at a particular time. So whatever the fad is, I didn't know that. I'm familiar with the term fad. Like we had a yo-yo fad in elementary school when teachers gave us yo-yos and stuff. I guess maybe that's what it's like. Yeah. Dance to music in such a way as to imitate the characteristic poses struck by a model on a catwalk. I don't know what that. Okay. All right. Hmm. I shall at any rate not run after a young man before visitors. Well, now you've done what you wanted, put in Nicholas. Said unpleasant things to everyone and upset them. Let's go to the nursery. All four, like a flock of scared birds, got up and left the room. The unpleasant things were said to me, remarked Vera. I said none to anyone. Madame de Genlis, Madame de Genlis, shouted laughing voices through the door. The handsome Vera, who produced such an irritating and unpleasant effect on everyone, smiled and evidently unmoved by what had been said to her, went to the looking glass and arranged her hair and scarf. Looking at her own handsome face, she seemed to become still colder and calmer. In the drawing room, the conversation was still going on. Ah, my dear, said the Countess, my life is not all roses either. Don't I know that Ah, my dear, said the Countess, my life is not all roses either. Don't I know that at the rate we are living, our means won't last long? It's all the club and his easy-going nature. Even even in the country, do we get any rest? Theatricals, hunting, and heaven knows what besides. But don't let's talk about me. Tell me how you managed everything. I often wonder at you, Annette, how at your age you can rush off alone in a carriage to Moscow or Petersburg, to those ministers and great people, and know how to deal with them all. It's quite astonishing. How did you get things settled? I couldn't possibly do it. Ah, my love, answered Anna Mikhailovna, God grant you never know what it is to be left a widow without means and with a son you love to distraction. One learns many things then, she added with a certain pride. That lawsuit taught me much. When I want to see one of those big people, I write a note. Princess so-and-so desires an interview with so-and-so. and then I take a cab and go myself 2, 3, or 4 times till I get what I want. I don't mind what they think of me. Well, and to whom did you apply about Bori? Asked the Countess. You see, yours is already an officer in the guards, while my Nicholas is going as a cadet. There's no. A cadet was a volunteer, usually of a good family, who had not yet received a commission, but whose place in the army was with the officers and not in the ranks. Okay. There's no one to interest himself for him. To whom did you apply? To Prince Vasily. He was so kind. He at once agreed to everything and put the matter before the emperor, said Princess Anna Mikhailovna enthusiastically, quite forgetting all the humiliation she had endured to gain her end. Has Prince Vasily aged much? Asked the Countess. I have not seen him since we acted together at the Romientsovs theatricals. Normally, if I see a word that's of a different language, including a name, I would look it up. But there's too many names, and I don't want to. Maybe next time. I'm still trying to get to the point where I understand the smaller words again. But I guess I'll do this one. Shade of red or rosy. Rumyensov. It means shade of red or rosy. Theatrical. I expect he has forgotten me. He paid me attention in those days, said the Countess with a smile. He is just the same as ever, replied Anna Mikhailovna, overflowing with amiability. His position has not turned his head at all. He said to me, I am sorry I can do so little for you, dear princess. I am at your command. Yes, he is a fine fellow and a very kind relation. But, Natalie, you know my love for my son. I would do anything for his happiness. And my affairs are in such a bad way that my position is now a terrible one, continued Anna Mikhailovna, sadly dropping her voice. My wretched lawsuit takes all I have and makes no progress. Would you believe it? I have literally not a penny and don't know how to equip Boris. She took out her handkerchief and began to cry. I need 500 rubles and have only one 25-ruble note. I am in such a state. My only hope now is in Count Cyril Vladimirovich Bezukov. If he will not assist his godson, you know he is Boris' godfather, and allow him something for his maintenance, all my trouble will have been thrown away. I shall not be able to equip him. The Countess's eyes filled with tears, and she pondered in silence. Honestly, a lot of times I don't like to look up the names of people because I find that often their name does have some impact on their character. I don't know why, but I've noticed that people of a similar name have similar traits. If he will not assist his godson, you know he is Boris' godfather, and allow him something for his maintenance, all my trouble will have been thrown away. I shall not be able to equip him. The Countess's eyes filled with tears, and she pondered in silence. I often think, though perhaps it's a sin, said the princess, that here lives Count Cyril Vladimirovich Bezukov, so rich, all alone, that tremendous fortune, and what is his life worth? It's a burden to him, and Boris' life is only just beginning. Surely he will leave something to Boris, said the Countess. Heaven only knows, my dear. These rich grandees are so selfish. Still, I will take Boris and go to see him at once. and I shall speak to him straight out. Let people think what they will of me. It's really all the same to me when my son's fate is at stake. The princess rose. It's now 2 o'clock and you dine at 4. There will just be time. And like a practical Petersburg lady who knows how to make the most of time, Anna Mikhailovna sent someone to call her son and went into the anteroom with him. Goodbye, my dear, said she to the countess, who saw her to the door, and added in a whisper, so that her son should not hear, wish me good luck. Wish me good luck. Are you going to Count Cyril Vladimirovich, my daughter, and my dear? Said the Count, coming out from the dining hall into the anteroom, and he added, if he is better, ask Pierre to dine with us. He has been to the house, you know, and danced with the children. Be sure to invite him, my dear. We will see how Taras distinguishes himself today. He says Count Orlov never gave such a dinner as ours will be. Chapter 15. My dear Boris, said Princess Anna Mikhailovna to her son as Countess Rostova's carriage in which they were seated drove over the straw-covered street and turned into the wide courtyard of Count Cyril Vladimirovich Bezukov's house. My dear Boris, said the mother, drawing her hand from beneath her old mantle and laying it timidly and tenderly on her son's arm. Be affectionate and attentive to him. Count Cyril Vladimirovich is your godfather after all, and your future depends on him. Remember that, my dear, and be nice to him, as you so well know how to be. If only I knew that anything besides humiliation would come of it, answered her son coldly. But I have promised and will do it for your sake. Although the hall porter saw someone's carriage standing at the entrance, after scrutinizing the mother and son, who without asking to be announced had passed straight through the glass porch between the rows of statues and niches, and looking significantly at the lady's old cloak, he asked whether they wanted the Count or the Princess, and hearing that they wished to see the Count, said His Excellency was worse today, and that His Excellency was not receiving anyone. We may as well go back, said the son in French. My dear, exclaimed his mother imploringly, again laying her hand on his arm as if that touch might soothe or rouse him. Boris said no more, but looked inquiringly at his mother without taking off his cloak. My friend, said Anna Mikhailovna, in gentle tones, addressing the hall porter, I know Count Cyril Vladimirovich is very ill. That's why I have come. I am a relation. I shall not disturb him, my friend. I only need see Prince Vasily Sergeyevich. He is staying here, is he not? Please announce me. The hall porter sullenly pulled a bell that rang upstairs and turned away. Princess Drubetskaya to see Prince Vasily Sergeyevich. He called to a footman dressed in knee breeches, shoes, and a swallowtail coat, who ran downstairs and looked over from the halfway landing. The mother smoothed the folds of her dyed silk dress before a large Venetian mirror in the wall, and in her trodden-down shoes briskly ascended the carpeted stairs. "My dear," she said to her son, once more stimulating him by a touch, "you promised me." The son, lowering his eyes, followed her quietly. They entered the large hall, from which one of the doors led to the apartments assigned to Prince Vasily. Just as the mother and son, having reached the middle of the hall, were about to ask their way of an elderly footman who had sprung up as they entered, the bronze handle of one of the doors turned and Prince Vasily came out, wearing a velvet coat with a single star on his breast, and as was his custom when at home, taking leave of a good-looking, dark-haired man. This was the celebrated Petersburg Doctor Lorraine. "Then it is certain," said the prince. "Prince, humanum est errare." "But," replied the doctor, swallowing his R's and pronouncing the Latin words with a French accent. It's getting kind of annoying, by the way. You know, so here's the thing about languages in Europe. First of all, errare humanum est is to err is human. To make mistakes is human. Here's the problem with Europe and all the languages it speaks. The landmass of the entirety of Europe is not that much different than the landmass of the continental United States. That's 48 states. There are less states than that. There are less nations than 50 in the European Union. Every one of those countries has a different language. Here in America, every one of the states that we are a part of speak English. To the north, Canada, it speaks English with one French-speaking province. There's a French-speaking province that they used to speak French where I grew up. They used to speak German in some of the places that I grew up. But everybody decided that they were going to become united, and they decided to speak English because that's the language that the government used. So everybody, my grandfather was fluent in German and French. He never spoke it to me. I never heard him speak French or German, except for, colloquial phrases. But I never heard him speak it. And that's an intentional choice. You know how difficult it is to learn 10 different languages, 10 different accents, 10 different, and not just that, every language has different dialects within it. So really it's like by extolling the virtue of learning many languages, you're just saying that you worship the Tower of Babel. So, speak whatever language you want, but don't criticize anybody for speaking a language that is not their government's language. Very well, very well. Seeing Anna Mikhailovna and her son, Prince Vasily dismissed the doctor with a bow and approached them silently and with a look of inquiry. The son noticed that an expression of profound sorrow suddenly clouded his mother's face, and he smiled slightly. "Ah, Prince, in what sad circumstances we meet again, and how is our dear invalid?" said she, as though unaware of the cold, offensive look fixed on her. Prince Vasily stared at her and at Boris questioningly and perplexed. Boris bowed politely. Prince Vasily, without acknowledging the bow, turned to Anna Mikhailovna, answering her query by a movement of the head and lips indicating very little hope for the patient. "Is it possible?" exclaimed Anna Mikhailovna. "Oh, how awful. It is terrible to think. This is my son," she added, indicating Boris. "He wanted to thank you himself." Boris bowed again politely. "Believe me, Prince, a mother's heart will never forget what you have done for us." Here's another theory. Well, important one. Ah, Prince, in what sad circumstance we meet again. And how is our dear invalid? Said she, as though unaware of the cold, pensive look fixed on her. Is it possible? Exclaimed Anna Mikhailovna. How awful! It is terrible to think. This is my son, she added, indicating Boris. He wanted to thank you himself. Boris bowed again politely. Believe me, Prince, a mother's heart will never forget what you have done for us. I am glad I was able to do you a service, my dear Anna Mikhailovna, said Prince Vasily, arranging his lace frill and in tone and manner in Moscow to Anna Mikhailovna, whom he had placed under an obligation, assuming an air of much greater importance than he had done in Petersburg at Anna Scherer's reception. Aristocrats are frustrating because they have so much time to do nothing that they can come up with a lot of word games. Is it possible? Exclaimed Anna Mikhailovna. Oh, how awful. It is terrible to think. This is my son, she added, indicating Boris. He wanted to thank you himself. Boris bowed again politely. Believe me, Prince, a mother's heart will never forget what you have done for us. I am glad I was able to do you a service, my dear Anna Mikhailovna, said Prince Vasily, arranging his lace frill and in tone and manner here in Moscow to Anna Mikhailovna, whom he had placed under an obligation, assuming an air of much greater importance than he had done in Petersburg at Anna Scherer's reception. Try to serve well and show yourself worthy, added he, addressing Boris with severity. I'm glad. Are you here on leave? He went on in his usual tone of indifference. I'm awaiting orders to join my new regiment, Your Excellency, replied Boris, betraying neither annoyance at the prince's brusque manner nor a desire to enter into conversation, but speaking so quietly and respectfully that the prince gave him a searching glance. Are you living with your mother? I am living at Countess Rostova's, replied Boris, again adding, Your Excellency. That is, with Ilya Rostov, who married Natalie Shinshina, and said Anna Mikhailovna. I know, answered Prince Vasily in his monotonous voice. I never could understand how Natalie made up her mind to marry that unlicked bear. A perfectly absurd and stupid fellow and a gambler too, I am told. But a very kind man, Prince, said Anna Mikhailovna with a pathetic smile, as though she too knew that Count Rostov deserved this censure, but asked him not to be too hard on the poor old man. What did the doctors say? Asked the princess after a pause, her worn face again expressing deep sorrow. Okay. They gave little hope, replied the prince, and I should so like to thank Uncle once more for all his kindness to me and Boris. He is his godson, she added, her tone suggesting that this fact ought to give Prince Vasily much satisfaction. Prince Vasily became thoughtful and frowned. Anna Mikhailovna saw that he was afraid of finding in her a rival for Count Bezukov's fortune, and hastened to reassure him. If it were not for my sincere affection and devotion to Uncle, said she, uttering the word with peculiar assurance and unconcern, I know his character, noble, upright, but you see, he has no one with him except the young princesses. They are still young. She bent her head and continued in a whisper. He has performed his final duty, Prince. Has he performed his final duty, Prince? How priceless are those last moments. I can make things no worse, and it is absolutely necessary to prepare him if he is so ill. We women, Prince, and she smiled tenderly, always know how to say these things. I absolutely must see him, however painful it may be for me. I am used to suffering. Evidently, the prince understood her, and also understood, as he had done at Anna Pavlovna's, that it would be difficult to get rid of Anna Mikhailovna. Would not such a meeting be too trying for him, dear Anna Mikhailovna? Said he. Let us wait until evening. The doctors are expecting a crisis. But one cannot delay, Prince, at such a moment. Consider that the welfare of his soul is at stake. Ah, it is awful, the duties of a Christian. A door of one of the inner rooms opened, and one of the princesses, the count's niece, entered with a cold, stern face. The length of her body was strikingly out of proportion to her short legs. Prince Vasily turned to her. Well, how is he? Still the same. But what can you expect this noise, said the princess, looking at Anna Mikhailovna as at a stranger. Ah, my dear, I hardly knew you, said Anna Mikhailovna with a happy smile, ambling lightly up to the count's niece. I have come and am at your service to help you nurse my uncle. I imagine what you have gone through. And she sympathetically turned up her eyes. The princess gave no reply and did not even smile, but left the room at once. Anna Mikhailovna took off her gloves and, occupying the position she had conquered, settled down in an armchair, inviting Prince Vasily to take a seat beside her. Boris, she said to her son with a smile, I shall go in to see the Count, my uncle. But you, my dear, had better go to Pierre meanwhile, and don't forget to give him the Rostovs' invitation. They ask him to dinner. I suppose he won't go? She continued, turning to the prince. On the contrary, replied the prince, who had plainly become depressed. I shall be only too glad if you relieve me of that young man. Here he is, and the Count has not once asked for him. He shrugged his shoulders. A footman conducted Boris down one flight of stairs and up another to Pierre's room. Chapter 16. Pierre, after all, had not managed to choose a career for himself in Petersburg, and had been expelled from there for riotous conduct and sent to Moscow. The story told about him at Count Rostov's was true. Pierre had taken part in tying a policeman to a bearer. He had now been for some days in Moscow and was staying as usual at his father's house. Though he expected that the story of his escapade would be already known in Moscow, and that the ladies about his father, who were never favorably disposed toward him, would have used it to turn the Count against him, he nevertheless, on the days of his arrival, went to his father's part of the house. Entering the drawing room, where the princesses spent most of their time, he greeted the ladies, two of whom were sitting at embroidery frames, while the third read aloud. It was the eldest who was reading, the one who had met Anna Mikhailovna. The two younger ones were embroidering. Both were rosy and pretty, and they differed only in that one had a little mole on her lip which made her much prettier. Pierre was received as if he were a corpse or a leper. The eldest princess paused in her reading and silently stared at him with frightened eyes. The second assumed precisely the same expression, while the youngest, the one with the mole, who was of a cheerful and lively disposition, bent over her frame to hide a smile probably evoked by the amusing scene she foresaw. She drew her wool down through the canvas and, scarcely able to refrain from laughing, stooped as if trying to make out the pattern. "How do you do, cousin?" said Pierre. "You don't recognize me?" "I recognize you only too well, too well. How is the Count? Can I see him?" asked Pierre, awkwardly as usual, but unabashed. "The Count is suffering physically and mentally, and apparently you have done your best to increase his mental sufferings." "Can I see the Count?" Pierre asked again. If you wish to kill him outright, you can see him. Olga, go and see whether Uncle's beef tea is ready. It's almost time," she added, giving Pierre to understand that they were busy making his father comfortable, while evidently he, Pierre, was only busy causing him annoyance. Olga went out. Pierre stood looking at the sisters. Then he bowed and said, "Then I will go to my rooms. You will let me know when I can see him." And he left the room, followed by the low but ringing laughter of the sister with the mole. Next day Prince Vasily had arrived and settled in the Count's house. He sent for Pierre and said to him, "My dear fellow, if you are going to behave here as you did in Petersburg, you will end very badly. That is all I have to say to you. The Count is very, very ill, and you must not see him at all." Since then Pierre had not been disturbed, and had spent the whole time in his rooms upstairs. When Boris appeared at his door, Pierre was pacing up and down his room, stopping occasionally at a corner to make menacing gestures at the wall, as if running a sword through an invisible foe, and glaring savagely over his spectacles, and then again resuming his walk, muttering indistinct words, shrugging his shoulders, and gesticulating. "England is done for," said he, scowling and pointing his finger at someone unseen. "Mr. Pitt, as a traitor to the nation and to the rights of man, is sentenced to." But before Pierre, who at that moment imagined himself to be Napoleon in person and to have just effected the dangerous crossing of the Straits of Dover and captured London, could pronounce Pitt's sentence, he saw a well-built and handsome young officer entering his room. Pierre paused. He had left Moscow when Boris was a boy of 14, and had quite forgotten him. But in his usual impulsive and hearty way, he took Boris by the hand with a friendly smile. "Do you remember me?" asked Boris quietly with a pleasant smile. "I have come with my mother to see the Count, but it seems he is not well." "Yes, it seems he is ill. People are always disturbing him," answered Pierre, trying to remember who this young man was. Boris felt that Pierre did not recognize him, but did not consider it necessary to introduce himself, and without experiencing the least embarrassment, looked Pierre straight in the face. "Pierre Rostov asks you to come to dinner today," said he, after a considerable pause which made Pierre feel uncomfortable. "Ah, Count Rostov!" exclaimed Pierre joyfully. Then you are his son, Ilya?" "Only fancy. I didn't know you at first." "Do you remember how we went to the Sparrow Hills with Madame Jacquot? At such an age." "You are mistaken," said Boris deliberately, with a bold and slightly sarcastic smile. "I am Boris, son of Princess Anna Mikhailovna Drubetskaya. Rostov, the father, is Ilya, and his son is Nicholas. I never knew any Madame Jacquot. Madame Jacquot." Pierre shook his head and arms as if attacked by mosquitoes or bees. "Oh dear, what am I thinking about? I've mixed everything up. One has so many relatives in Moscow." "So you are Boris?" "Of course." "Well, Well, now we know where we are. And what do you think of the bologna, bologna, bologna? It's not like bologna, like the meat. Bologna. What do you think of the Bologna expedition? The English will come off badly, you know, if Napoleon gets across the channel. I think the expedition is quite feasible, if only Villanueva doesn't make a mess of things. Boris knew nothing about the Bologna expedition. He did not read the papers, and it was the first time he had heard Villanueva's name. We here in Moscow are more occupied with dinner parties and scandal than with politics, said he in his quiet, ironical tone. I know nothing about it and have not thought about it. Moscow is chiefly busy with gossip, he continued. Just now they are talking about you and your father. Pierre smiled in his good-natured way, as if afraid for his companion's sake that the latter might say something he would afterwards regret. But Boris spoke distinctly, clearly, and dryly, looking straight into Pierre's eyes. Moscow has nothing else to do but gossip, Boris went on. Everybody is wondering to whom the Count will leave his fortune, though he may perhaps outlive us all, as I sincerely hope he will. Yes, it is all very horrid, interrupted Pierre. Very horrid. Pierre was still afraid that this officer might inadvertently say something disconcerting to himself. And it must seem to you, said Boris, flushing slightly, but not changing his tone or attitude, it must seem to you that everyone is trying to get something out of the rich man. So it does, thought Pierre, but I just wish to say, to avoid misunderstandings, that you are quite mistaken if you reckon me or my mother among such people. We are very poor, but for my own part, at any rate, for the very reason that your father is rich, I don't regard myself as a relation of his, and neither I nor my mother would ever ask or take anything from him. For a long time Pierre could not understand, but when he did, he jumped up from the sofa, seized Boris under the elbow in his quick, clumsy way, and blushing far more than Boris, began to speak with a feeling of mingled shame and vexation. Well, this is strange. Do you suppose I could think? I know very well. But Boris again interrupted him. I am glad I have spoken out fully. Perhaps you did not like it? You must excuse me, said he, putting Pierre at ease instead of being put at ease by him. But I hope I have not offended you. I always make it a rule to speak out. Well, what answer am I to take? Will you come to dinner at the Rostovs? And Boris, having apparently relieved himself of an onerous duty and extricated himself from an awkward situation and placed another in it, became quite pleasant again. No, but I say, said Pierre, calming down, you are a wonderful fellow. What you have just said is good, very good. Of course you don't know me. We have not met for such a long time, not since we were children. You might think that I understand, quite understand. I could not have done it myself. I should not have had the courage, but it's splendid. I'm very glad to have made your acquaintance. It's queer. He added after a pause, that you should have suspected me. He began to laugh. Well, what of it? I hope we'll get better acquainted. And he pressed Boris's hand. Do you know, I have not once been in to see the Count? He has not sent for me. I am sorry for him as a man, but what can one do? And so you think Napoleon will manage to get an army across? Asked Boris with a smile. Pierre saw that Boris wished to change the subject, and being of the same mind, he began explaining the advantages and disadvantages of the Bologna expedition. A footman came in to summon Boris. The princess was going. Pierre, in order to make Boris's better acquaintance, promised to come to dinner, and warmly pressing his hand, looked affectionately over his spectacles into Boris's eyes. After he had gone, Pierre continued pacing up and down the room for a long time, no longer piercing an imaginary foe with his imaginary sword, but smiling at the remembrance of that pleasant, intelligent, and resolute young man. As often happens in early youth, especially to one who leads a lonely life, he felt an unaccountable tenderness for this young man and made up his mind that they would be friends. Prince Vasily saw the princess off. She held a handkerchief to her eyes and her face was tearful. It is dreadful, dreadful, she was saying. But cost me what it may. It is dreadful, dreadful, she was saying. But cost me what it may, I shall do my duty. I will come and spend the night. He must not be left like this. Every moment is precious. I can't think why his nieces put it off. Perhaps God will help me to find a way to prepare him. Adieu, Prince. May God support you. Adieu, ma bonne. Adieu, ma bonne. Adieu, ma bonne, answered Prince Vasily, turning away from her. Oh, he is in a dreadful state, said the mother to her son when they were in the carriage. He hardly recognizes anybody. I don't understand, Mama. What is his attitude to Pierre? Asked the son. The will show that, my dear. Our fate also depends on it. But why do you expect that he will leave us anything? Ah, my dear, he is so rich and we are so poor. Well, that is hardly a sufficient reason, Mama. Oh, heaven, how ill he is, exclaimed the mother. Chapter 17. After Anna Mikhailovna had driven off with her son to visit Count Cyril, Vladimirovich Bezukov, Countess Rostova sat for a long time all alone, applying her handkerchief to her eyes. At least she rang. What is the matter with you, my dear? She said crossly to the maid who kept her waiting some minutes. Don't you wish to serve me? Then I'll find you another place. The Countess was upset by her friend's sorrow and humiliating poverty, and was therefore out of sorts, a state of mind which with her always found expression in calling her maid my dear, and speaking to her with exaggerated politeness. I am very sorry, ma'am, answered the maid. Ask the Count to come to me. The Count came waddling in to see his wife with a rather guilty look as usual. Well, little Countess, what a sauté of game au madère. What a sauté of game au madère. We are to have, my dear. That didn't sound right. Okay, that means it's cooked meat with wine. Sauté of game au madère. Yeah. What a sauté of game au madère we are to have, my dear. I tasted it. 1,000 rubles I paid for Taras were not ill spent. He is worth it. He sat down by his wife. his elbows on his knees and his hands ruffling his gray hair. What are your commands, little countess? You see, my dear. What's that mess? She said, pointing to his waistcoat. It's the sauté, most likely, she added with a smile. You see, Count, I want some money. Her face became sad. Oh, little countess, and the Count began bustling to get out his pocketbook. I want a great deal, Count. I want 500 rubles. And taking out her cambric handkerchief, she began wiping her husband's waistcoat. Yes, immediately. Hey, who's there? He called out in a tone only used by persons who are certain that those they call will rush to obey the summons. Send Dmitri to me. Dmitri, a man of good family who had been brought up in the Count's house and now managed all his affairs, stepped softly into the room. This is what I want, my dear fellow, said the Count to the deferential young man who had entered. Excuse me. Bring me, he reflected a moment. Yes, bring me 700 rubles. Yes, but mind, don't bring me such tattered and dirty notes as last time, but nice clean ones for this countess. Yes, Dmitri, clean ones, please, said the countess, sighing deeply. When would you like them, your excellency? Asked Dmitri. Allow me to inform you, but don't be uneasy, he added, noticing that the Count was beginning to breathe heavily and quickly, which was always a sign of approaching anger. I was forgetting. Do you wish it brought at once? Yes, just so. Bring it. Give it to the Countess. What a treasure that Dmitri is, added the Count with a smile when the young man had departed. There is never any impossible with him. That's a thing I hate. Everything is possible. Ah, money, Count, money. How much sorrow it causes in the world, said the Countess. But I am in great need of this sum. You, my little Countess, are a notorious spendthrift, said the Count, and having kissed his wife's hand, he went back to his study. When Anna Mikhailovna returned from Count Bezukov's, the money, all in clean notes, was lying ready under a handkerchief on the Countess's little table, and Anna Mikhailovna noticed that something was agitating her. Well, my dear, asked the Countess. Oh, what a terrible state he is in. One would not know him, he is so ill. I was only there a few moments and hardly said a word. Annette, for heaven's sake, don't refuse me. The Countess began with a blush that looked very strange on her thin, dignified, elderly face, and she took the money from under the handkerchief. Anna Mikhailovna instantly guessed her intention and stooped to be ready to embrace the Countess at the appropriate moment. This is for Boris from me, for his outfit. Sorry, I just needed to unlock the door real quick. Anna Mikhailovna was already embracing her and weeping. The Countess wept too. They wept because they were friends, and because they were kind-hearted, and because they, friends from childhood, had to think about such a base thing as money, and because their youth was over. Those tears were pleasant to them both. Yep. I mean, I'm not saying yep to anything in particular. I'm just, here we are. Hey, Zach. Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. Go. What? ginger and turmeric tea today. Something I have in my cabinet from before. Turmeric is supposed to be real good for health and anti-inflammation properties, and ginger is also something supposedly very good for health. Countess Rostova, with her daughters and a large number of okay. I'm expecting a visitor. Whether they're for me or against me, I don't know. I just think that someone's coming. And chapter 18. Countess Rostova, with her daughters and a large number of guests, were already seated in the drawing room. The Count took the gentlemen into his study and showed them his choice collection of Turkish pipes. From time to time, he went out to ask, Hasn't she come yet? They were expecting Maria Dmitrievna Akrosimova, known in society as the Terrible Dragon, a lady distinguished not for wealth or rank, but for common sense and frank plainness of speech. Maria Dmitrievna was known to the imperial family as well as to all Moscow and Petersburg, and both cities wondered at her, laughing privately at her rudeness, and told good stories about her, while none the less, all without exception, respected and feared her. In the Count's room, which was full of tobacco smoke, they talked of the war that had manifesto. I skipped a line. In the Count's room, which was full of tobacco smoke, they talked of the war that had been announced in a manifesto, and about the recruiting. None of them had yet seen the manifesto, but they all knew it had appeared. Sorry if my voice changes, it does that. I don't have a consistent voice. My voice changes, my face changes, my hair changes, my eyes change colors. I don't know what it is. It just happens. Countess Rostova, with her daughters and a large number of guests. What? What are you whining about? You want out? Go on. Go on away. I need to fix my fence. Let me take a minute while I wait for these dogs to go do their business and return. I put turmeric in this burrito. It always gives a really rich yellowish color. It's pretty good too. So now I got turmeric burrito and turmeric tea. It might be a little too much turmeric. And I got this, I was given a Yeti cup as a gift by my mother and my father. One year, I don't know if it was for my birthday or Christmas or something. This thing certainly holds the heat. It really does. It's good for tea. See, it's a Yeti brand. I have a cup. I don't know. It also has this. I'm going to try to open it without spilling my coffee everywhere. Not coffee, tea. Apologies. It has this thing, which is like a perfect seal. And this thing right here It closes and it comes off so it can be washed easy. It's one of the best cups I've ever had in my life. It's probably my current favorite. Another good thing about it is it's roughly about 8 ounces. To have it closed, so that's perfect for about 1 tea bag or 1 cup of coffee, 1 scoop of instant coffee, because I'm tired of brewing pots of coffee, so I drink instant coffee, because all I gotta do is boop, boiling water. So gotta wait for these dogs to whine to come in if I can move on. I look forward to my vegetables growing in. I started growing vegetables because I want to be able to go outside and grab an onion from the ground and chop it up fresh if I want. Or like, I think I got, let's see, I have carrots, tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, potatoes, tomatoes, onions, bell pepper, and I think celery. I might not have planted celery. No, oh, excuse me. I might not have planted celery, so I don't know what my 6th row is. I don't remember what my 6th row is. Carrots, potatoes, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers. Carrots, potatoes, onions. Those are root vegetables. Tomatoes, bell peppers. Those are bush vegetables. I don't know what's the other thing I planted? I'm pretty sure I planted 6 different things. It was only like a 1 yard by 1 yard square or something. Um, Carrots, potatoes, onions, bell peppers. Carrots, potatoes, onions, bell peppers, tomatoes. I don't know. I don't remember what the last thing is. It's not a big crop. It's like no bigger than a tomato plant. It's either a root vegetable or a tomato plant style sized object. So I don't know. What was it? What was it that I made? There's one more. I just can't remember. I guess I could go look at the bags. It's not broccoli or spinach. Well, maybe spinach. Was it spinach? It might have been spinach. Which is a cruciferous vegetable, I think it's called. So I planted the carrot rainbow mix because I've only ever had orange carrots. Grand Bell mix, sweet peppers, Granex yellow PRR hybrid onions, because that's the one I use for gumbo. Tomato Chef's Choice blend. I might have planted some peas, or this might have been from another time, but I think I planted some spinach, baby leaf spinach. And I'm probably going to plant some peas soon. I want to plant these in the front yard, mammoth sunflowers, but I don't know how I feel. I'll probably plant a few. This is my test crop. I'm a new farmer. I actually have this stuff to classify my land as a farm. I gotta get my farmer ID number. They're growing well. They've been growing a couple weeks. There's nothing sprouted, but I think it takes like days to bloom. Not days to bloom. Let's see, days to harvest. Baby leaf spinach, 30 to 40 days, so that's a month. These peas take 68 days. These carrots, 67 days. This pepper, sweet. I was gonna say pepper, but I read the word fairy first. Pepper, sweet, 65 to 85 days. Yellow onions, 80 to 109 days. And tomatoes, 75 to 89 days. So like 3 months from when I planted them, and they should start fruiting. But then I have like 3/4 of an acre of land, not counting my house. So probably about a half an acre of that is in my backyard. And I plan on just planting nothing but vegetables, just vegetables everywhere. Everywhere that's not a place for my kid to play on. I'm just planting vegetables, man. I'm just gonna have vegetables. I don't even care if I eat them. I'm just gonna plant them. And then I'll sell the ones that are extra once I get my farmer's ID. But it's doing good. 2 weeks. It's doing pretty well. I never had a place where I could actually grow food and not have, like, it's nice to have a house. I bought a foreclosed home because I didn't really care about the quality of the house. I just wanted a piece of land near where I worked. Excuse me for the higher pitch. It's an active hiccup. So I'm looking forward to it. I like all these vegetables. These are probably the ones that I planted are probably my favorites. My favorite vegetables. And then I'm gonna transplant them when they get strong. To like I have even outside of my yard, I have a little garden to the left when I walk out, and I just ripped up all the old roots and stuff, tilled it up, and planted it, and it's working. I look forward to it. One of these days, I'm gonna buy a big farm. All right. Good talk. Chapter 18. Countess Rostova, with her daughters and a large number of guests, were already seated in the drawing room. The Count took the gentlemen into his study and showed them his choice collection of Turkish pipes. From time to time he went out to ask, hasn't she come yet? They were expecting Maria Dmitrievna Akrosimova, known in society as the Terrible Dragon, a lady distinguished not for wealth or rank, but for common sense and frank plainness of speech. Maria Dmitrievna was well known to the imperial family, as well as to all Moscow and Petersburg. And both cities wondered at her, laughing privately at her rudenesses, and told good stories about her, while nonetheless, all without exception, respected and feared her. In the Count's room, which was full of tobacco smoke, they talked of the war that had been announced in a manifesto and about the recruiting. None of them had yet seen the manifesto, but they all knew it had appeared. The Count sat on the sofa between two guests who were smoking and talking. He neither smoked nor talked, but bending his head first to one side and then to the other, watched the smokers with evident pleasure and listened to the conversation of his two neighbors, whom he egged on against each other. One of them was a sallow, clean-shaven civilian with a thin, wrinkled face. I'll have you know that dogs are rude on purpose. More than likely they understand what you're saying, and if you're observant enough, the dogs will say all kind of stuff to you. Not like talking out loud, but body language. You done yet? I mean, come on. All good? You get enough? One of them was a sallow, clean-shaven civilian with a thin and wrinkled face, already growing old, though he was dressed like a most fashionable young man. He sat with his legs up on the sofa as if quite at home, and having stuck an amber mouthpiece far into his mouth, was inhaling the smoke spasmodically and screwing up his eyes. This was an old bachelor, Shinshin, a cousin of the Countess's, a man with a sharp tongue, as they said in Moscow society. He seemed to be condescending to his companion. The latter, a fresh, rosy officer of the guards, irreproachably washed, brushed, and buttoned, held his pipe in the middle of his mouth, and with red lips, gently inhaled the smoke, letting it escape from his handsome mouth and rings. Man. This was Lieutenant Berg, an officer in the Semenov regiment with whom Boris was to travel to join the army, and about whom Natasha had teased her elder sister Vera, speaking of Berg as her intended. The Count sat between them and listened attentively. His favorite occupation, when not playing Boston, a card game he was very fond of, was that of listener. The Count sat between them and listened attentively. His favorite occupation, when not playing Boston, a card game he was very fond of, was that of listener, especially when he succeeded in setting two loquacious talkers at one another. Well then, old chap, mon très honorable Alphonse Karlovich, said Shinshin, laughing ironically and mixing the most ordinary Russian expressions with the choicest French phrases, which was a peculiarity of his speech. Vous comptez vous faire de René. I hadn't said these words in a long time, so if I mess up French, please forgive me. I haven't had anyone to speak French with since high school. Vous comptez vous faire de rente. No, that's different. Vous comptez vous faire des rentes sur l'État. Vous compte vous faire des rentes sur le tas. You want to make something out of your company. And the footnote says you expect to make an income out of the government. No, Peter Nikolovich. I only want to show that in the cavalry the advantages are far less than in the infantry. Just consider my own position now, Peter Nikolovich. Berg always spoke quietly, politely, and with great precision. His conversation always related entirely to himself. He would remain calm and silent when the talk related to any topic that had no direct bearing on himself. He could remain silent for hours without being at all put out of countenance himself or making others uncomfortable. But as soon as the conversation concerned himself, he would begin to talk circumstantially and with evident satisfaction, which is kind of a shitty thing to say, because, I mean, here's a dude who's trying to avoid your gossip, and you want to gossip to him about him, but then you're upset to hear the gossip straight from the horse's mouth, probably because you're too garbage of a fucking human being to... Anyway. Excuse me. Consider my position, Peter Nikolovich. Were I in the cavalry, I should get not more than 200 rubles every 4 months, even with the rank of lieutenant. But as it is, I receive 230, said he, looking at Shinshin and the Count with a joyful, pleasant smile, as if it were obvious to him that his successes must always be the chief desire of everyone else. Beside that, Peter Nikolovich, by exchanging into the guards, I shall be in a more prominent position, continued Berg. And vacancies occur much more frequently in the foot guards. Then just think what can be done with 230 rubles. I even managed to put a little aside and to send something to my father, he went on, emitting a smoke ring. The balance ist... A German knows how to skin a flint, as the proverb says. So that squares matters. Remarked Shinshin, moving his pipe to the other side of his mouth and winking at the Count. The Count burst out laughing. The other guests, seeing that Shinshin was talking, came up to listen. Berg, oblivious of irony or indifference, continued to explain how by exchanging into the guards he had already gained a step on his old comrades, the cadet corps. How in wartime the company commander might get killed and he, as senior in the company, might easily succeed to the post. How popular he was with everyone in the regiment, and how satisfied his father was with him. Berg evidently enjoyed narrating all this and did not seem to suspect that others too might have their own interests. But all he said was so prettily sedate, and the naivete of his youthful egotism was so obvious that he disarmed his hearers. Well, my boy, you'll get along wherever you go, foot or horse, that I'll warrant, said Shinshin, patting him on the shoulder and taking his feet off the sofa. Berg smiled joyously. The Count, followed by his guests, went into the drawing room. It was just the moment before a big dinner when the assembled guests, expecting the summons to zakuska. The zakuska, little bite, is the hors d'oeuvre, consisting according to circumstances of a more or less varied choice of snacks. Caviar, salt fish, cheese, radishes, or whatnot, with small glasses of vodka and other spirits. It is usually laid on a side table and serves to whet the appetite. Avoid engaging in any long conversation, but think it necessary to move about and talk in order to show that they are not at all impatient for their food. The host host and hostess looked toward the door and now and then glance at one another, and the visitors try to guess from these glances who or what they are waiting for, some important relation who has not yet arrived, or a dish that is not yet ready. Pierre had come just at dinner time and was sitting awkwardly in the middle of the drawing room, on the first chair he had come across, blocking the way for everyone. The Countess tried to make him talk, but he went on naively looking around through his spectacles as if in search of somebody, and answered all her questions in monosyllables. He was in the way, and was the only one who did not notice the fact. Most of the guests, knowing of the affair with the bear, looked with curiosity at this big, stout, quiet man, wondering how such a clumsy, modest fellow could have played such a prank on a policeman. "You have only lately arrived?" the Countess asked him. "Oui, madame," replied he, looking around him. "You have not yet seen my husband?" "No, madame." He smiled quite inappropriately. "You have been in Paris recently, I believe. I suppose it's very interesting." "Very interesting." The Countess exchanged glances with Anna Mikhailovna. The latter understood that she was being asked to entertain this young man, and sitting down beside him, she began to speak about his father. But he answered her, as he had the Countess, only in monosyllables. The other guests were all conversing with one another. The Razumovskys, it was charming. You were very kind, Countess Apraxina, was heard on all sides. The Countess rose and went into the ballroom. "Maria Dmitrievna," came her voice from there. Herself came to answer in a rough voice, and Maria Dmitrievna entered the room. All the unmarried ladies, and even the married ones, except the very oldest, rose. Maria Dmitrievna paused at the door, tall and stout. Holding her 50-year-old head with its gray curls, she stood surveying the guests, and leisurely arranged her wide sleeves as if rolling them up. Maria Dmitrievna always spoke in Russian. "Health and happiness to her whose name day we are keeping, and to her children," she said in her loud, full-toned voice, which drowned all others. "Well, you old sinner," she went on, turning to the Count, who was kissing her hand. "You're feeling dull in Moscow, I dare say? Nowhere to hunt with your dogs? But what is to be done, old man? Just see how these nestlings are growing up." And she pointed to the girls. "You must look for husbands for them, whether that you like it or not." "Well," said she, "how's my Cossack?" Maria Dmitrievna always called Natasha a Cossack, and she stroked the child's arm as she came up fearless and gay to kiss her hand. "I know she's scared of a girl, but I like her. I know she's a scamp of a girl, but I like her." She took a pair of pear-shaped ruby earrings from her huge reticle, and having given them to the rosy Natasha, who beamed with the pleasure of her Saint's Day fete, turned away at once and addressed herself to Pierre. Friend, come here a bit," said she, assuming a soft, high tone of voice. "Come here, my friend," and she ominously tucked up her sleeves still higher. Pierre approached, looking at her in a childlike way through his spectacles. Come nearer, friend. I used to be the only one to tell your father the truth when he was in favor, and in your case it's my evident duty." She paused. All were silent, expectant of what was to follow, for this was clearly only a prelude. "A fine lad, my word, a fine lad. His father lies on his deathbed, and he amuses himself setting a policeman astride a bear. For shame, sir, for shame. It would be better if you went to the war." She turned away and gave her hand to the Count, who could hardly keep from laughing. "Well, I suppose it is time we were at a table," said Maria Dmitrievna. The Count went in first with Maria Dmitrievna. The Countess followed on the arm of a colonel of hussars, a man of importance to them because Nicholas was to go with him to the regiment. Then came Anna Mikhailovna with Shinshin. Berg gave his arm to Vera. The smiling Julie Karagina went in with Nicholas. After them other couples followed, filling the whole dining hall, and last of all the children, tutors, and governesses followed singly. The footmen began moving about, chairs scraped. The band struck up in the gallery, and the guests settled down in their places. Then the strains of the Count's household band were replaced by the clatter of knives and forks, the voices of visitors, and Dmitrievna on her right and Anna Mikhailovna on her left. The other lady visitors were farther down. At the other end sat the Count with the hussar colonel on his left and Shinshin on the other male visitors on his right. Midway down the long table, on one side, sat the grown-up young people, Vera beside Berg and Pierre beside Boris, and on the other side the children, tutors, and governesses. From behind the crystal decanters and fruit vases, the Count kept glancing at his wife and her tall cap with its light blue ribbons, and busily filled his neighbor's glasses, not neglecting his own. The Countess, in turn, without omitting her duties as hostess, threw significant glances from behind the pineapples at her husband, whose face and bald head seemed by their redness to contrast more than usual with his gray hair. At the ladies' end, an even chatter of voices was heard all the time. At the men's end, the voices sounded louder and louder, especially that of the Council of Hussars, who, growing more and more flustered, ate and drank so much that the Count held him up as a pattern to the other guests. Berg, with tender smiles, was saying to Vera that love is not an earthly but a heavenly feeling. Boris was telling his new friend Pierre who the guests were and exchanging glances with Natasha, who was sitting opposite. Pierre spoke little but examined the new faces and ate a great deal. Of the two soups, he chose turtle with savory patties and went on to the game without omitting a single dish or one of the wines. These latter the butler thrust mysteriously forward, wrapped in a napkin from behind the next man's shoulders, and whispered, "Dry Madeira, Hungarian or Rhine wine," as the case might be. Of the 4 crystal glasses engraved with the Count's monogram that stood before his plate, Pierre held out one at random and drank with enjoyment, gazing with ever-increasing amiability at the other guests. Natasha, who sat opposite, was looking at Boris as girls of 13 look at the boy who they are in love with and have just kissed for the first time. Sometimes that same look fell on Pierre, and that funny, lively little girl's look made him inclined to laugh without knowing why. Nicholas sat at some distance from Sonia, Julie Karagina, to whom he was again talking with the same involuntary smile. Sonia wore a company smile, but was evidently tormented by jealousy. Now she turned pale, now blushed and strained every nerve to overhear what Nicholas and Julie were saying to one another. The governess kept looking round uneasily as if preparing to resent any slight that might be put upon the children. The German tutor was trying to remember all the dishes, wines, and kinds of dessert in order to send a full description of the dinner to his people in Germany. And he felt greatly offended when the butler, with a bottle wrapped in a napkin, passed him by. He frowned, trying to appear as if he did not want any of that wine, but was mortified because no one would understand that it was not to quench his thirst or from greediness that he wanted it, but simply from a conscientious desire for knowledge. Go. I don't want to read any more today. I've had enough. I'll read again hopefully tomorrow if my voice hasn't become sore. look at my floor. I've got some old mail and a little bit of stuff that needs to be shredded. It's got some personally identifiable information on it, so I need to shred it. And I haven't gotten around to it yet, so my floor is a little bit cluttered. So that was a lot of words. It was a little easier this time. I'm generally only going to read as much as my brain is comfortable with. I'll shoot for two. I'll shoot for two. 2 per day. This cat, man, he keeps licking my other dog's mouth. I don't know what to do about that. I don't think that's a really good thing to do. I don't really like, that's kind of gross. But how you doing, buddy? This cat I got from a pet store in Louisiana. My kid was asking for a cat. It was a $25 adoption. It came pre-named. His name is Zach, Z-A-K. Or his name, I suppose. He's very soft. I bought a female cat previously, and I'd never had a cat. So getting to know the differences between a male and a female cat are kind of interesting. His claws are much sharper. But then again, that might have been because he was younger. And his demeanor is different. I kind of enjoy it. He has a musky scent, which I don't particularly like, but I can deal with it just for the sake of, just dealing with the cat. I don't mind it so much. I'm getting kind of used to it. It was kind of gross before. I didn't like it so much, but he's a good boy. He's a good boy. So this soft little kitty. But he destroyed so many things. This chair I only bought not that long ago, like last year or something, and he just decided he was going to go about and just rip it up. So the bottom of my chair is like all ripped up, like the part that I'm sitting on. I got him a scratching post, but he doesn't seem to use it a whole lot. It takes a real long time for dogs and cats to get to the point where they're comfortable with one another and they don't want to mess with each other too much. The problem with that is it causes, like, for it to really work, it requires scolding by me. Like, don't do that, and stuff like that. But then they turn to not like me. They get used to each other, and then they don't like me. But then I leave them alone, and they start bugging the crap out of each other, and they start to like me again. It's fun. It's like, they're almost like children. But, like, not nearly as intelligent. They're like little robot things with pieces of intelligence. And it's interesting to see the different types of intelligence that animals are capable of. And it's even different between, like, breeds of dogs and from animal to animal. So it's kind of fun. I don't got anything else. I might hop on in a little bit to was I gonna do? Oh. Oh, I see I have one visitor again. It currently doesn't show me visitor count or viewer count. So it was easier. Oh, here we go. Twitch stats. I got one viewer on. How you doing? I can see the chat if you want to chat. You don't need to or anything. I don't feel like it, but oh, I got an activity feed also. Okay, so don't need that anymore now that I have the stats. Cats are fun. It's nice to have animals. Like, it makes the house feel more lived in. So. He's a good boy. It was unfortunate though because he had to travel 18 hours with me because I went and I adopted him, and then we immediately started driving from Louisiana to North Carolina. And I don't know. I don't think that was a good first impression for him because he hid for a few weeks after that. I like cats. We didn't have a pet cat when I was growing up, but we had a lot of feral cats outside. So I'd always go try to tame them. I always liked them. They're very soft. And they purr, which is nice. They're like a big hot hot water bottle. Big hot water bottle. A big furry hot water bottle. Just purring their life away. Little beautiful creature. I don't have anything to do or anything. I'm just kind of watching what the cat does on the camera because it's a weird angle. Like, it's weird seeing myself. The most I usually ever see myself is in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth. And it's also weird to see cats from, like, just things from different angles is always weird. Like, just seeing the cat react, because I can see it right here, but it looks so different on the screen. What's up, cat? What's up, Zach? I like dogs and cats. I like birds and lizards. I like fish and field mice, hamsters and gerbils and snakes and skunks and fireflies and fire ants. I like centipedes and millipedes and roly-polies and beetles, June bugs and love bugs and everything. I ain't discriminatory about an animal or a bug. I don't kill them anymore either. I try to make a point of not killing bugs because they're so easy to kill them. But they used to, like, I got attacked by a wasp when I was a kid, and then for years, like over a decade, I killed every wasp I saw. To the point that I knew how to kill a wasp so good that I could just crush it with my fingertip if I wanted. Like, I didn't need to worry about its stinger anymore. I killed so many wasps, I never had to worry about its stinger. I could just... And that's when I decided I didn't want to kill any more of them, because they quit attacking me. Do you know that if you can't have people in your life, it's not bad to have animals. Just treat them well. Treat them like you would your own child. But keep in mind, they're not a child. They're an animal. Cats and dogs come out of the womb and they're ready to go. They're like adults in weeks. It doesn't take very long. They're weak. So like animals are much stronger than people relative to their size. So keep in mind that they're not a little baby. Like a cat, if you don't handle them right, like they'll scratch your face all up. You remember watching Marvel when Nick Fury got his left eye scratched out by a cat? It wasn't a cat, it was one of those weird things, but you got to be careful about them. You just got to know, like, if you hadn't gotten scratched by a lot of cats, It's hard to know when a cat's about to scratch you. The same thing with a dog. If you hadn't been around a lot of dogs, it's hard to know if a dog's about to bite you. But if you have spent a bunch of time around animals, it's easy to know when they're about to attack you. Just like with ants, I know when an ant's about to bite me, or sting me rather, and it's just, I don't even worry about it anymore. Their stings don't hurt anymore. But there's new bugs. There's always new bugs. Some of them make me worried. I wonder why bugs exist. I'm gonna get off. I'll probably come back and play The Longing in a minute. But for now, I'm done. I'm gonna go do something else. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you next time, which will probably just be a few minutes or an hour or two or something. I don't know. I woke up not tired, and I'm probably not gonna be tired till later. So I'll see you later.